Okay, welcome everybody. Thanks for taking the time to join us today for our webinar here about what's new in the latest version of Estima. For those of you who've joined us for one of these before, you'll remember that in your webinar controls you have a chat option, and you should be able to send in a chat message. So if you have questions along the way, you can send those in, and we can try to get to some of them maybe during the session, and if not, we can certainly get back with you after the fact to let you know about what those answers to those things might be. But maybe to start with, maybe somebody can just send me a quick chat message and let me know that you can hear me and that you can see the screen all right. I just want to make sure we're having all the right technology. Okay, perfect. Looks like I got some feedback there and everything's good. So very good. We'll go ahead and get started. So again, this is about version 4.11.12.3214 or 3213, either one. And just letting you know what the new versions are available, or the new features that are available in here. We'll start with a 3D viewer. So for those of you who aren't familiar with a 3D viewer, here in the Plan tab, where you have drawn your items on your page, you can come to this little button here that says Open 3D Window. And when you do that, you'll get a 3D rendering of what you've drawn on the page. So here's our roof. But you can see in this case, this roof is dropped down lower. We went back to a elevation view of this plan. You can see it should be something like this, basically a two-level roof. One roof lower, one roof higher. And so previously there wasn't a way to control the levels of your roofs or the different things in your project. They just sort of were all at one level. So we've given you control to be able to change that for those of you who make use of the 3D viewer. So here's this upper roof section right here. And I'm going to go ahead and select all of the components there for that, select those areas. And I'm going to hold down Control and right click. And there's this new setting here called Z offset. So unlike the X-axis going left and right on the page, or Y going up and down on the page, now you have in a sense this Z offset, this Z axis, which is in this case is kind of coming in and out from you on the page. But it's basically saying how far up and down should this thing be. Default is 0, but you can adjust it different ways. So I'm going to say for this custom, I'm going to adjust this whole roof up 9 feet from the roof below. And actually one of these sections, because of just how the roof runs, this one up here needs to be different. So I'm going to set its offset to be 8 feet 4 inches. I can do 8-4, just like you may be used to in other parts of the software. Click OK. And now with those settings changed that way, if I look at the 3D viewer again, pull this over here, now you can see that that roof has been lifted up. So now it's actually a much more accurate reflection of how it's going to be in the project. You got the upper roof and the lower roof rendered in that way. So whether it's overframing or dormers or different things like that, you have the ability to control that in the 3D viewer now. Another feature that we've improved in this version relates to a feature that we released last version, and that's the ability to have a blocking tool. So you can set a segment line to be blocking, and you get that blocking type look as you do it. And you also have the option to have a blocking split, so you can have your joist be broken at that location as well. But when you chose that before, the blocking split, in the previous version, you didn't have the ability to do the split overlap at that location, to have your joists lap past each other. And we've added that in this version, so you can come to the split overlap, set it to 12 inches, and now you get that blocking. The blocking will adjust for those double-plied members, and so on. So that's been added in this version for that blocking split. You can now do overlaps with it. And then one other, maybe a small point for some, maybe a bigger point for others. is when you first start your project, you'll notice, and I can't show you very well in this particular job because it already has a bunch of stuff in it, but if you were to go to draw a line and go to application, wall assembly is an item that should now be showing up in your shortlist as a default, even if you haven't drawn a wall assembly already. So we found that many people were using wall assemblies on a regular basis and wanted to be able to get to that application quickly to start with. So we added that into the default shortlist of applications. And so from there, now let's shift on to the idea of being able to send an item to Calc, or send an item to Forte, I should say. Being able to do a single member sizing. Now, for those of you who are familiar with Estima, you already know that Estima is not design software. It doesn't analyze the members or tell you that, oh, that won't work in this case. It's takeoff software, and it's relying on the user to make those decisions based on what they've learned from a single member sizing software, such as Forte, or that they have been specified by the engineer and is stamped. But one of the things that we thought may be useful for people who are drawing in these members is to be able to send out the information about that particular member to Forte, so you could run a calc on it and see, is this appropriate, and analyze the member. So as an example, let's say we take this microlam that's running across the front here. I can come to that microlam, I can right click on it now, and one of the options I have is to export a Forte job file about that particular member. So I can choose that, and when I do, I'm going to get a little preview window, and it's going to tell me about that. It's a floor flush beam, it's this product microlam, it's 3 plies, it's that long, and it has bearings at these locations. Now, where did it get those bearings from? Well, the answer is, in this case, it assumed them. And that's because, if we were to cancel this for a second, we can see we haven't drawn in anything over here for that. And so since it didn't find anything, the assumption was, well, there must be bearings on either end, and so we put that on there. But just to demonstrate, if I came here to put an 8-foot post in, maybe just for demonstration purposes, there's a post sitting here underneath that member. So it's a supporting post. And now if I was to right click on this and choose export Forte job file, notice something's changed. I have an additional bearing location. And that's that post that I added in, because it's picking that up, saying that, oh, okay, here is a post that this beam is bearing on. So once you have a member, you can, and we'll do one other thing. I'll just show you that in addition to being able to do one item at a time, you could also do several at once. So if I wanted to take this beam here and this beam here, I could hold down Control, right click, choose Export to Forte job file. And now in my preview window, I'm going to have not only that longer one, I'm going to have this shorter one as well. And those would both be sent out. So now this can be used with both Forte desktop version as well as the Forte web version. If you leave this checkbox checked after you save your Forte file, it's going to automatically launch the desktop version of Forte if you have that installed. In this case, though, I'm going to uncheck this box because, as many of you are probably aware, there's a Forte web as well, and that's where a lot of the new stuff is migrating toward. So I encourage you to get familiar with that if you haven't made use of that particular software yet. But I'm going to choose to uncheck that box, and I'm going to export these to a Forte job file. Click OK. And when I do, that's literally what I'm going to do is I'm going to save a file, a Forte job file. So I'm going to come to desktop, and I'll call this my Forte file, or Forte beams. And I'll go ahead and hit save, and it's going to create that file for me. And it's sitting over there on my desktop, and now I can open it. I could open it in the local version, or I'm going to come up here to the Forte web, and I'm going to come to this file manager. And I'm going to click import, and I'm going to find that job file. Forte beams. There it is right there that I created. Click open. And I'll click OK. And there it's been brought in. And you can see now that it's given me two members, C1 and C2. And I can choose to look at those and note that from this point, while it's put in information about the job or about that particular item, like the product that's being used, where the bearings and stuff are and the supports are, so that information is being populated, but loading would be something that you would need to apply as for yourself. So Estima doesn't provide that loading information. It just provides that geometric data that you can then take to Forte and then finish it up and find the appropriate solution. But note also that we do name those as C1 and C2, and that corresponds then with these over here, these labels that have been added onto those particular members, so C1 and C2. So you'd be able to cross-reference between your Forte single member sizing that you've done, and then if you were to create a layout, it would have those designations of C1 and C2 on it so that you could see those in both locations and easily identify which one goes where. So that's the ability to export something to Forte. If you have more questions about that, we're happy to answer that, but that's information there. Continuing on to some new changes for the framing layouts. I'm going to come over here to the framing layouts tab. Some fun changes that and updates that we've made. I'm going to choose to view this top framing layout here. View. And here we've got a standard framing layout, and we've noted in previous versions that you can reposition this image. And not only that, but you can move it over here all the way underneath the materials list. Basically, anywhere in this whole box area, you can now position this and view that image. But in addition to that, in this version, you also have the ability to drag other of these components. So you can grab your material list and slide it down. You could take your out for approval note and put it out over here underneath the material list, make it really clear for your readers. Move your notes up, move them over, however you would want to arrange those items on the page. And then if you close this down and view it again, it's going to remember those settings that you've made for that particular layout and keep them positioned that way. In addition, you can also have your details arrayed in different ways. Just to demonstrate that, and also note that if you want something to just go back to its original position, you can choose to right-click on it and choose Reset Position, like this. But if we wanted our details to arrange themselves, not left to right across the bottom, we wanted them to be, let's say, from the upper left-hand corner and going down the page. I can do that. I'm going to close this. I'm going to change my layout style here. I've created a new one for myself called 11 by 17 Details Upper Corner. Click on that, and I'll choose to view this layout that way. And in this case, those details go to the upper left-hand corner and array down the page. Again, I can drag them around where I want, so it doesn't limit that, but it's just where do they default to laying out from. To change that or to make that adjustment, you can come to the Profile, come to the General tab, and here under Framing Layouts, you could come to one of your existing ones or create a new one using the plus button. And in those settings, you would change the detail placement, top left, bottom left, or detail orientation, vertical or horizontal. Which way do they run on the page? So that's where you would make those changes. So lots of new flexibility in the framing layout area. And so encourage you to check that out and see how that all works and what works best for your business there. Another couple small changes in the framing layout area. One is this master checkbox. So if you ever want to just unselect everything, you now have this master to do that, and just select one of those, or select everything, and you can put everything back on. So you've got a master control there. And then also into the title. Previously this was a free type field, but now you need to click the edit button to actually make a change to the title of the framing layout. And part of the reason for that change is another option or another ability we've given you is to be able to drag and drop your framing layouts in order. So if you want to reposition the order of some of them and move them around, you just click and drag on the name and place it in the right order in the list so that they appear in your PDF that you output in the right order that you would like. So those are framing layouts and the changes that we've made there. And so now I'm going to transition into the last section. It's a little bit longer section, but of set of features that we've introduced. And these are for a set of features related to when you're working on option projects. We saw a need for at least a part of the industry who were working on option type jobs, and I'll talk about those in a second just so we're on the same page about that. But we developed 3 different features to help with accomplishing those types of projects. But I want to point out here at the beginning of this discussion that even though you may not do option type projects, I encourage you to hang on and don't let your eyes glaze over too much, if you will, and look at some of these features that we've added in, because you may find them to be useful to you in your business, not so much for option type projects, but just for other functionalities. Because these new features aren't limited to just being for options. They can be leveraged in multiple different ways. But with that said, let's just step back for a moment just to get the context of what problem were we trying to solve when we were developing these features. So we were looking at option type projects, and when I say option projects, I mean this, just to be clear. So if I come to this floor plan here, I've got an upper floor and a lower floor here. Standard plan, except for if I zoom into this corner over here, you can see that there's an optional bedroom 4 and bath 3. They call it option number 1. So this plan could be built in a couple different ways. You could build it in the standard way, or you could build it with the optional bedroom 4. It also has variations of elevation B. So now you have several different combinations that could happen. And for those of you who do that, you know that sometimes those tract home builders, you could have 7, 8, or 9, 10 different options that are on for a particular set of plans, resulting in a whole bunch of combinations that are possible. So many times what's needed for that type of project is if you're not just doing a site-specific model saying, well, I want this, this, and this, but you actually need to produce material lists or framing layouts that are for all of the different variations. That's what we were trying to solve, or what we were trying to provide some better tools for. And so the approach that we took with this, I'm going to have just a short little visual here to help you understand. But the approach that we took was that you would approach the project this way. First, you would start by doing the takeoff on the standard list, or doing the framing layouts, the floor framing, or entire structure framing for the standard vanilla list. Just the really basic version of the house, the standard list. And once you have that done, then you're going to go to each of the individual options and find what needs to change for that particular case. So in this case, let's say that there is a second elevation. What we're going to do is we're going to take a copy of the standard list, copy it over, and then with that copy, we're going to adjust it, change it, and make the changes that are necessary to make it turn into elevation B. So now, instead of this being the standard list, now it is actually the standard list that's been adjusted to be elevation B. Or another one, let's say there was a media room option. Again, we're going to follow that same type of pattern. We're going to go back to the standard list. We're going to get a copy of it and copy it over. And then when we have it, that copy, we're going to change it, adjust it to make the changes so that it is an appropriate material list for the media room option, the standard list with the media room option. And so then at the end of the day, what you would be able to do is you can run a report that compares the standard elevation, the elevation B back to the standard list, and find out what has changed. And it will tell you, oh, well, in that case, you need to add and subtract these quantities. Or the same way, with the media room option, we can find out, okay, with the changes we've made with the media room option, what do I need to add or subtract to the standard list in order to do the media room option? So that was the approach that we took. Hopefully that makes some sense to those of you who do this from time to time and work on these larger option projects, but that was the approach that we took. So what are the features that we introduced? There were three main ones. The first relates to how do you copy this list? How do you do this in an easy way so that you can take the standard list, copy it, and make adjustments to make it match the option that you're working on? So let's come back down here. I'm going to come over to my project tab. Here's my list. And so here I have my standard vanilla list, right? My elevation A. This is just my basic model. So now that I have this complete, I've got my material in here that I've done. It's linked up and everything. I'm going to right click on elevation A and I'm going to choose to copy the list. Now this is not a new feature, this part, but we've added something into the copy list functionality that is new. And that is this right here, clone links. The ability to copy takeoff items to new digitizer pages. It automates that process. So I'm going to come to this. I'm going to choose retain inputs because I want an exact copy. I'm also going to clone my links and retain my notes. And I'm going to rename this or give this an appropriate name. So in this case, this is going to be elevation A with bedroom 4. Okay, so my goal is to turn this copied list into what would be needed to build the standard house with the bedroom 4 option. So click OK, and it's going to go through and it's going to copy that list. So here in a moment, it's going to show up there in the tabs area, and I'm going to get a copy of that list. There it is, elevation A with bedroom 4. So if we were to look at these two lists, they're basically going to be identical to each other right now. The material list inside is going to be exactly the same. But something that's changed is since we chose that clone list option, I come over to the plan, or clone takeoff items is what I should say. Here are the pages that I drew on originally, the floor plans in elevation A. But if I come down here, because I did that clone item, I have this new folder with new digitizer pages with new digitizer items on them. So just to make this a little bit more clear, I'm going to come back to the list. Here I am at my original list, so my first vanilla standard list. If I open up the upper floor, and here's this beam right here. And let's say I use this zoom to function to zoom to where is that takeoff item that I'm linked to. Where is that over in the digitizer? So I'll click zoom to, come to the plan, and notice I am on this top page, this original page that I drew on, and here's my beam right here. So I've got that. That makes sense. Come back here to my list. Now let's come to my copied list. And I'm going to choose, again, that upper floor. So I'm going to come to basically that same beam, select it, and I'm going to choose to zoom to that particular takeoff item. Bring that into view. I'll go back to the plan and see where did it zoom me to. In this case, I'm not on this upper page anymore. Now I'm down on this new page with a new takeoff item. And so now if I were to adjust this particular beam, I'm adjusting it not for both projects, not for both lists, but rather just for that new list, this elevation A with bedroom 4. So I'll now be able to adjust even my takeoff items that are associated with this list, and they won't affect my original elevation A list. So just to see how this works, what can I do? Well, I could come over here and I could say, well, I want this option 1, bedroom 4. And I could even overlay something here. I'm going to right click and choose to add this page as an overlay. So here I've got my overlay, just make it a little bit more clear as to what's going on with this bedroom 4. And I'll align this or move this overlay. Put that in here. So this is where bedroom 4 comes in. So now I can really see what's happening with these walls. And I can make changes. I can say, okay, now to adjust this, I need to move this exterior wall up in here to account for that. That's where all these exterior walls are going now, is out here. And those there. And just for your comfort level, as you watch me do a little bit of this, I'm not going to do the whole thing as we watch, but just showing you, you can make these quick, easy adjustments. So down here with this interior wall, I'm going to draw more segments like this. I need some. I need to do some interior walls in these locations now. And one over here for the bathroom, and so on. And then I can also need to adjust these ceiling joists as well. These need to come out over here, and this needs to come out over here for that upper ceiling joist to be correct. So I can adjust things there, right? And now my material list is being updated, but again, only the material list for the bedroom 4 option instead of in my standard list is being left alone. On the lower floor, since this is the upper floor framing and covering the upper floor, this was ceiling joist before, but now this option area is in that area, so I need to turn these ceiling joists into floor joists. So I'll select these members. And I'm going to move selection here, put those into floor joists. And you could do something similar with rim that you would need to do, but we're not going to take the time to do all of it. But you can go around and make adjustments and changes, and it's only updating that one list. So the first feature that's there, first of the 3 that we added in, relates to being able to copy a list and be able to clone your takeoff items. So not just retain the links like you could do previously, which is going to have you tied to the same takeoff items. Now you can actually clone them and make entirely separate takeoff items. Just to demonstrate the reports, I'm going to do that one more time. I'm going to copy list, clone the links. Let's say that I also had a media room option. So elevation A with media. I would do the same thing again. I would create the list, and it's going to copy my original list, put a new one over here in just a moment. So here we have elevation A with media. And so then I could come back to my plans and I could say, okay, here's my elevation A with media folder that's been created. And I could come to these pages and make the changes that would be needed to adjust the plans in order to meet the media room option. So I would handle those options one at a time. And I should also note here, now we're going a little bit into the real details here. But if you have options that overlap each other, so if bedroom 4 and the bedroom 4 option and the media room option overlapped each other, like if you had both, then the framing would be different than they would be if you just had them individually. Then you'd have to actually have an additional option that you would do over here to handle the case of what would it look like if I was having both of those options. So combined options that interact with each other, that would be another option that you need to handle. But once you have your options in place, the second feature that we added in relates to reports. And so we'll come over to the reports tab. And basically what it comes down to is this reports feature is basically a way to compare lists with each other within the same project. So I'm going to come to the plus button. I'm going to create a new report. And you'll need to use either condensed or direct ship for this to be used. I'm going to use condensed. So I'll do that. Now I'm going to choose QL. And then the new thing that's down is down here, this list comparison option. So I'm going to choose that. When I choose that, I now have the option to define what's my primary list. So what is it that I want everything to be compared against? What's the standard? So in my case, elevation A that was my standard list. So I'm going to keep that as my choice. Then in the list comparison, I can choose which other lists I want to have compared to that one. In this case, I'm going to choose both. I want to have both the bedroom 4 and the media room option compared to that original, so I can get the changes or the adds and subtracts from that. I'll leave it as the add and subtract values, and I'll click OK. And now I can choose to view this report. So we'll click View, and it's going to come here. And now let's take a look at what we got. To start with, we've got what you would expect. It starts out with the material list for just the standard vanilla option, that elevation A. Here are all the materials for the wall, the upper floor walls, roof materials, exterior trim, and so on. But now once we get to the end of that standard material list, then we get to another section. This is materials to add and remove. So for bedroom 4 in the upper floor, I need to add these materials, and I need to remove these materials. Same thing down here with the upper wall for bedroom 4. I need to add these materials, and I need to remove these materials. And then when I go further down here with the roof, I need to add these materials and remove them. Now, media room option isn't showing up here because we never actually made any changes to the media room. So let's do that real quick, just for the demonstration. We'll come to media room and we'll just change something really fast. Let's just say that for some reason for the media room option for the headers, they have to change to 4x16s. So we'll just change it to that. Come back to reports. If we view this again, now what we're going to find is down here under media room option, there is an add and subtract. If I'm going to do the media room option, I need to get rid of these 4x10s, add these 4x16s in. So now you could actually look by doing this report that compares all of these lists, you would be able to easily find, okay, if I'm doing the media room option, I need to add and subtract this. If I'm doing the bedroom 4 option, I need to add and subtract this. If I'm doing both the media room and the bedroom 4, I would need to account for both of those adds and subtracts. And then in addition, if you can mentally follow along with this, come back to the edit option, you also have the ability to have a single reconciled combined list, meaning it does all of the adds and subtracts for you and makes you just one material list. So if I wanted to have a material list that showed me elevation A with bedroom 4 and the media room option, what does the material list look like for all of that? I can check this, click OK, click View, and now what I have is I have just a material list. If I scroll down to the bottom, you're going to find there are no adds and subtracts anymore because those adds and subtracts have already been applied to the main list to get this total list of materials for elevation A with bedroom 4 with the media option. So those are the reports, and I'll point out one of the obvious ways, though, that you may want to use this is if you're trying to track changes in a job. So forgetting options for a minute, this compare reports field feature, if you previously used compare reports up here, you also may find value in being able to use this new option of list comparison here within the program to do something similar. So for revisions or changes in that way. All right, so that's the second feature that we added in for option projects. First was copying list and cloning. Second was this reporting functionality that we've added in. And finally, is the third one for it is the framing layouts. We've added in a new feature right here called Combine Selected Framing Layouts. This allows you to have multiple framing layouts be on one page. Since option type projects can have a whole bunch of variations with it, some people may not want to have sheet after sheet after sheet of framing layouts to show all the different variations, but would rather be able to just combine the media room option framing and the bedroom 4 framing onto a single sheet. And so we've allowed you to do that now with your framing layouts. So let's say I wanted these top 4 framing layouts right here and I wanted to combine them onto a single framing layout. I have them selected, so since these are selected, I can go to the checkbox and choose to combine selected framing layouts. I'll give it a title. I'll call this options, just to give it a title. This will show up on your framing layout title. And now you can see what happens is I have this main parent item. Notice it looks a little bit different. It doesn't have all of the details about it. because it's a parent item. It's more the container, the holder for those framing layouts. Notice that for each of these framing layouts down here, I can still view them individually. So I could still view each of these framing layouts on its own. But if I come to that top parent item and click View, actually first I'll change this to 24 by 36. But if I click View, now I'm going to view all of those framing layouts tiled around into the different quadrants of that particular single page. And just like this upper left-hand corner, it remembered how I had positioned those different things on the page. I can also control those on this page as well. So I can adjust these individually to match what I need. In addition, I can also choose, I've pointed out here that we have an elevation. So here's just a possible variation of how you might find this tool useful. Instead of option type projects, maybe you just want to have a single sheet that you give to your builder that is all 4 elevations of your siding on a single sheet. So you could show all 4 elevations on a single page here with the corresponding material list accordingly. So lots of different ways that you may want to use this feature of being able to combine framing layouts on a single page. So that brings us to the end of the features that we wanted to review today. So a lot of different ones. Hopefully several of them will be something that is useful to you. And I see there's a question about which is the right version. 4.11.12.3213. That is a fine version. We made a change and an update since that first release to help with a CSV export. So unless you make use of the CSV export functionality, then there'd be no reason you need to upgrade any further. So 3213 would be the latest version. So thanks again for joining us today. And there will be a recording for this, so if you dozed off through part of it because you got lost a little bit, hopefully that wasn't the case, but if you wanted to review some of it again, just send us an email and we're happy to talk or send a link to you for that so you can see that more. And as always, if you have any questions about some of the new features, just give us a call. We're happy to talk through them. So thanks very much for joining us and have a good afternoon yet.